One of the interesting things about playing a musical instrument is that it does something to the brain that nothing else can do. You see it, you feel it, you hear it. And I don't know of anything else that we as humans do that will do that.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am back with Andrew Pudewa, and we are talking about music this week. So if you missed Monday's episode and yesterday's episode, go back and listen to those. This is part of our Homeschooling Every Subject series, and we are having a great time with this series. It's been so much fun to have people come on and talk about all the different aspects of homeschooling when it comes to what subjects we're teaching our kids. And so music is an important part of that. And so Andrew is here to rescue us in the world of music. But before we get back into our conversation, I want to say thank you again to our sponsor, BJU Press Homeschool. If you're looking for great, strong biblical worldview curriculum for any subject, any age, any grade, check them out at bjupresshomeschool.com. And if you're not sure what you need, you can call them up and speak with one of their consultants, and they will help guide you through what you need. I know IEW, Institute for Excellence in Writing, you have a customer service department, and I love that aspect of so many homeschool curriculum companies that we can just call them up and talk to their people, and they'll help and say, okay, here's what your needs are, here's what would be best for you. So I love that IEW does that as well. And so BJU Press does that too. Call them up, bjupresshomeschool.com. or IEW.com if you're looking for language arts specifically, and they will help. So you guys have been an amazing supporter of Schoolhouse Rocked, and we're so grateful for you as well as BJU and all of our other.
Movie.
You're in
How
the
can
movie.
We not?
You are the star of the movie. I'm certain that we've told this story before because you've been on the podcast several times, including our Meet the Cast series that we did. But it was so funny because when we were just talking about this with someone the other day, and the day you were our first big celebrity interview. And the day we interviewed you, we spent that whole day together, went to dinner, and you gave us kind of a list of people and said, here are the people I would get in the movie. And you said, if there's any person you need to get in this movie, though, it's Heidi St. John.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay. And I barely knew who she was at the time. And by God's grace, we were able to get Heidi in the movie as well.
Oh,
and
she was fantastic.
Yeah, the cast is just incredible. But much of it, we attribute to God working through you and helping to bring so much of that
Praise
cast
the Lord
together.
on that.
Yeah, so it was great. So we're talking about music today, and this has been a fun subject. I have said before, I'm not musical at all. And so it's a little bit terrifying to me. We've had kind of a wonky life because we've traveled so much, and I'm certain we listened to music, but I'm certain we could have figured out a way to train our kids in music. But Brooklyn took piano lessons when she was younger, before we left California. And I was in shock at how quickly she picked it up. I mean, she would come home and just play this piece. And I'm like, how did you learn that so quickly? And she just was like, my teacher taught me. Okay. I could play Mary Had a Little Lamb. I used to play it on the phone. I don't know if you remember the old phones,
I do.
attached to the wall, and they had the little number buttons, and you could actually play Mary Had a Little Lamb. And so I thought that was like my musical experience as a kid. Oh man. But for those parents who are not musical, and it seems very difficult to teach our kids to play music, or if maybe we don't have the budget to put them in music lessons. We don't have the ability to teach them ourselves. We don't have a family member, a close friend who can teach them. Grandma can't come over and teach them how to play the piano. Talk to that parent about obviously we know about the importance of music. And you were talking about the importance of people learning to play music. Talk about that, because it is important, and I know it is, but I feel like it's not practical for everyone, but you say that it is.
Well, so one
us.
of the interesting things about playing a musical instrument is that it does something to the brain that nothing else can do. And it has to do with the stimulation of the brain as you are playing a musical instrument to activate 3 sensory pathways simultaneously. So when you see an instrument, right, whether it's a xylophone or a piano or even a violin, which is a little less visual, but you see what you're doing. And you also are hearing the tonal differentiations as you touch the keys or make the sounds.
Right.
And you're also feeling tactilely and kinesthetically how that's happening. You're moving your hand or your fingers to different places to make the sounds. So what's happening is you're putting into your brain, you're stimulating your brain with a perfectly ordered set of information through 3 sensory pathways simultaneously. Okay. You see it, you feel it, you hear it. And I don't know of anything else that we as humans do that will do that. And when I say perfectly ordered, that is because music is mathematical. In fact, some of our listeners may be familiar with the 7 liberal arts with the trivium and the quadrivium. The trivium being the language arts of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Right. And then the quadrivium being the mathematical arts, which are arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. Oh. So music is mathematically perfect, which is a beautiful thing. Right. Now, how so? Well, kind of the obvious thing would be rhythms, right? So we have rhythmic differentiations and whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, double dotted 16th notes, right? So there's a mathematical element that makes musical rhythmic. Right. There's also, we even use the terms, numerical terms, to describe the intervals. So, from, a C to a D, right, is a second, and then from a C to a E is a third. And you can have a major third or a minor third, a fourth, a perfect fifth, a sixth, a seventh, an augmented seventh, and an octave is from C to C. Okay. So when we learn the musical scales, we're actually using mathematical terminology in a way. But it goes even one step further. And this is what's so cool, because to me, this shows the mind-blowing beauty of creation. Yeah. The very vibrations of the notes are mathematical. So if you were to go to an orchestra performance, often the first thing that will happen is the concert master, concert mistress will come out. That's the first chair, first violin, point to the oboe, and the oboe will play an A. And then the strings will tune to the A, and the brass and the woodwinds and everyone will tune to the same note. Thank heavens, otherwise it might not be that great. Now that A in the Western countries is usually A440. So if you went to buy a tuning fork, which existed before there were phones to give you your notes, but you would hit it and it would vibrate, and you could put it to your ear or put it on a piece of wood and you would hear that note. A440. Well, what does the 440 mean? It means 440 vibrations per second. Oh, wow. So it's vibrating very quickly.
So you have to be able to count really, really fast.
No, you just hear it. But now here's what's so interesting. Octaves are not accidental. It's not we happen to hear an octave and like it because we're tuned that way. No, octaves are mathematical. So exactly one octave above A440 would be A880. Okay. Exactly one octave below A440 would be A220. Okay. One octave below that, A110. One octave below that, A55, and then it gets pretty hard to hear from there on. Wow. Okay. And so when you have an instrument that plays harmonies, like a piano or a string instrument, or a xylophone, what happens is you're getting resonance. You play the A880 and the A440, the other A will vibrate. So you're hearing overtones. And then, of course, every note in between is also proportional. And so all tones are mathematically proportional. And when you play one tone, another thing that is proportional to that, another string on the piano or on the violin, will vibrate in sympathetic resonance.
Wow.
So all of the notes are mathematical as well. So it's perfectly ordered, which is very different than, say, English grammar or spelling, which seems to be somewhat disordered to most people, at least not consistent.
Teach a kid how to spell.
So when you play a musical instrument, it is stimulating the brain through 3 sensory pathways simultaneously with a perfectly ordered set of information. And I know of nothing else that will do that. And then there's, of course, all sorts of experiments and research that have been done to show if you listen to the right kind of music, if you play music, then it actually does grow your brain. You score better on different, IQ measurements. You can actually see neural connections happening with functional MRI. And so the power of doing that is something that is far beyond nice. People say, oh, music, that's nice. Like if you had a little extra money and a little extra time, you could have music, you could give your kid piano. No, music is not nice at all. It's about as nice as hydrochloric acid, right? Hydrochloric acid, properly used, is extraordinarily powerful and important, and you couldn't live without it. Improperly used, you get burned.
Disastrous, right.
And so I would look at music in the same way.
Okay, let's take a break. We'll be right back. Have you tried CTC Math yet with your child? Here's a testimonial from another happy homeschool mom. Amber said, I'm absolutely thrilled with CTC Math. It's a rare find that I've used with my children for more than 5 years now. I have 6 children using CTC Math, and each child has found it easy to navigate and very applicable. Thank you so much for all that you are doing in providing quality math lessons for my children. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com. That's ctcmath.com. Join Apologia for the Homeschool Bootcamp, a free video series that provides practical guidance and wisdom from experienced homeschool parents. You'll discover how to equip your family for academic, social, and spiritual success. Plus, you'll discover how to build deeper and stronger family relationships. Homeschool Bootcamp covers how to break free from the public school mindset, daily planning, supporting students with learning challenges, homeschooling as a working parent, navigating the high school years, and much more. Find this incredible free homeschool resource at apologia.com/bootcamp. We're back with Andrew. Let's go back to the parent who's not musical, back to myself who knows nothing about music. And I'll actually tell you a funny story about this. We did classical conversations for a few years when we were living in California. My girls did foundations, and I was one of the foundations tutors. And one of my jobs was to teach kids how to play the tin whistle. I had a class of 7 kids, 7 7-year-olds, sweetest kids in the world. I could do all of the fun subjects, teach them all the little, chants and songs and this and that. And I had no problem. Art was fun. It came to teaching tin whistle. And I mean, you would have thought I was having to get up and speak in front of 10,000 people unprepared, because I was sweating. I was shaking. I was so nervous. I'm not even exaggerating. I was so nervous to teach these 7-year-olds how to play the tin whistle because I did not understand. I don't understand music. And I actually learned some while I was teaching them, but I was like, it's so unfamiliar to me and I don't know how to do this and this is horrible and I'm going to blow it. And these parents are counting on me to teach their kids how to play the tin whistle. And I mean, it was just terrifying for me. And so take that mom who's like, I don't know anything about music. How on earth do I teach this to my kids? What do you say to that parent? How do you encourage them?
You always have 2 choices. If you want your kids to have some experience or teach them something, and you don't feel confident, you have 2 choices. Choice 1, learn so you can teach. Choice 2, find someone else to do it.
Right.
And so those are both good options.
Yeah. Is there a third option somewhere in there? Can they take like a music pill? And just
No, I don't think so. But we've all, I think all homeschool parents have had the experience of, okay, I've got to teach this, and I don't really understand it.
Right.
And so I'm going to have to study
Figure it
a
out.
little bit.
Yeah.
I taught Latin for 6 years. I didn't know any Latin when I started.
Yeah.
So I had to study I had to put in a lot more time than the kids to just keep up with them.
Yeah.
And I could only stay a couple lessons ahead, and I had to log, a good half an hour to an hour a day to study what I was trying to teach. And as it got in further, I had to study more. Right. But I chose to do that because there was no one else to do it. Right? We're living in a place, there's no one else to teach Latin, so I have to do it. So I think that you could. I think that any mom could. And the trick would be to start with something that's very simple.
Like the tin whistle.
The tin whistle is a viable option. Recorders are, it's not terribly complex. You don't have to get it in tune like you would with a string instrument. You don't have to play more than one note at a time like you would with a piano. When I taught kinder music for many years, we used xylophones and then tiny little xylophone called a glockenspiel. Oh. And so it's just one octave worth of notes. And we would teach the children how to play a melody, to play a rhythm, how to play two at the same time to create a harmony. And, this is something anyone can do. I think the problem is that we hold our ability to do something, it's a very, very basic and beginning level, up against someone who, went to
like
school
Andrew
and grew
Pudewa.
up doing this and knows it really well.
Right.
And that's always a mistake to compare ourselves with an expert, because then we tend to despair and say, well, I'm never going to be able to do that. Well, you don't have to do that. We just have to kind of go to a point where we can do something and then do that with our children and learn as we teach and learn together.
Sure.
So that it's more of an exploration. Yeah. And, in a way, that's perfectly okay. And it's far better than not doing it at all.
Right.
So, again, going to the Latin analogy, I wasn't the best Latin teacher in the world for my kids and their friends that I was teaching. But it was way better for me to have done it than to have not done it.
Right.
Music is the same way. It's you can invest and you will get a return. It's guaranteed. But you don't have to have a huge stream of investment.
Right.
You don't have to have a great, huge bank account to get a little bit of interest.
Right.
And so that's why I'm encouraging parents. And then, today with technology, good heavens. I mean, any instrument you can think of, there's someone on YouTube teaching
I was actually going to ask you about that, because I know that that's a thing. Lots of kids are learning how to play guitar and piano and other instruments by going on and just watching YouTube videos that are free. Do you find that to work for some people?
Well, I think perhaps it's better than nothing. There are a few challenges, especially with children, which is they're not going to pick up on all of the finer refinements of how to do that well. I'm a violin teacher, and I don't know that I would be able to get a very good result trying to teach through a screen an 8-year-old.
Sure.
You kind of have to move their hand where it should be and remind them of the thing they're doing. It needs to be personalized and customized to some degree. But as an adult, you could probably watch a video, watch a YouTube lesson, and work hard to imitate and then pass that on to children. But my book, which I'll take a moment to suggest everyone read, is called However Imperfectly, Lessons Learned from 30 Years of Teaching. And I really like that because that title, when I came up with it, I thought, that's what we're all doing. Right? We're teaching our kids. Even if you're a teacher and you went to school for 6 years to learn how to do it, you're still floundering, honestly.
Yeah.
So however imperfectly we do something, it's still worth doing.
Right.
It's worth playing music. It's worth trying to teach your children. And if you can get some help from, a friend, a teacher you can afford, a video, well, great. But even if you can't, it's still worth doing. get a cheap little xylophone, get a couple penny whistles. And I think you would have felt better if you had maybe spent a little more time, preparing and practicing.
Yeah.
And then you could walk in with a little more confidence and say, hey, kids, I figured this out yesterday.
I did learn some. I taught, those 6 weeks were rough. But when I taught it, I did learn some. And I remember, some of those light bulb moments for myself going, I didn't know that about music. And so it was fun. Let me ask you one last question because we have just a couple minutes left. Is there a specific instrument that you would recommend kids if kids are just, our parents want their children to start learning music? I have heard that piano is a good place to start because you can learn good music theory that way. Do you recommend piano or do you think it really matters? Is there somewhere that's the best starting point for, even if kid says, hey, Mom, I want to learn how to play violin or guitar or, a horn or something like that. Do you recommend they just start with that instrument or start with something else first?
Well, I think there are maybe implanted in the soul different affinities.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
My mother taught piano and voice, and I begged for a violin. Why? I don't know. But I will tell you, I would never, ever have had the life that I have if I hadn't grown up playing the violin. I would never have started IEW. All the circumstances of my life were affected by the fact that I played the violin. So there could be a destiny.
Did you play piano also?
No, not at all. Badly. Right. And I quit.
Could you play Mary Had a Little Lamb?
I could play Mary Had a Little Lamb and Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But so there could be, in the soul of the child, a strong affinity that has some type of import we would never imagine. But otherwise, all things being equal, I do think that keyboards have the advantage where when you touch the thing, it gives you a pretty consistent sound. It's hard to hit a key and make it sound really bad. It is very easy to play a note on the violin and make it sound really bad. So there's that consistency. And then, of course, keyboards are involving all three elements with rhythm, melody, and harmony. Whereas, an instrument like the clarinet or the violin to some degree is not a lot of harmony. You have to get together with other people who play to get the harmony aspect. Violin, you can play 2 notes at one time, but not that soon.
Right.
Clarinet, you're pretty much stuck with 1 note ever.
Sure.
Whereas piano, you're going to learn to play many notes at the same time. So there's that benefit. And, but you can also get an inexpensive keyboard that can make a decent sound and start on that while you save money to buy a real acoustic piano, because even the best of keyboards isn't going to give you the same vibrational experience as a piano with all the overtones and the magnificence of the non-digital sounds. But, anything, a little recorder, penny whistle, glockenspiel, xylophones are great for kids because they like to bang on things.
It sounds loud. Just imagining a house full of kids banging on stuff, tin whistle.
If you don't give them something good to bang on, they'll go bang on whatever they can find. So there's that aspect of it.
Yes. All right. We're out of time, but what is just one last bit of encouragement that you would leave for parents in the world of music?
I don't think anyone ever regrets learning anything when it comes to music. You learn a song, you're happy you know a song. You learn how to play something on the xylophone, you're happy you know. You learn how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb on the phone. You're happy.
And 35 years later, I'm still bragging about
anything that you learn is de facto good.
Right.
And so why not try? And we always get caught in this modern idea. If we don't do something really well, then we shouldn't bother. Nobody started doing something really well. And for children, that breadth of experience is going to, sit in their subconscious and help them understand something intangible, which maybe later in life connects with, and they remember it, or they have that aptitude, and then maybe they pick it up and say, okay, I do want to play this instrument. And now I have the means and the discipline and the vision to get better at it.
Yeah.
So, anything you do, however imperfectly, is better than nothing.
Yes, I agree. And I just, one last thing I just want to say, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, in the world that we live in today, so many kids are just, obsessed with their phones. And there's something so therapeutic about music and playing music, not just listening to music. That also is therapeutic, but also playing music. And both of those things combined are so much more beneficial to our kids and to us than sitting on a phone or playing video games. Those things are still part of life too. But music just brings so much more depth to our lives. And as you talked about before, just it's part of God's creation. Talking about how music is mathematical. That's because God made it that way. It didn't evolve into that. I mean, that's impossible, but God made it such a beautiful thing for us. And so I think it's so good for kids too.
Yeah, I read once this article about a group of Chinese college students who started mathematically analyzing the music of Bach. And because of doing this, they determined that God had to exist.
Wow.
And they all became Christians.
Wow.
So I don't know where that is.
Yeah.
I don't have a reference on it. I just remember hearing about it at one point.
So, it does show the incredible glory of God's creation. So cool. Well, thank you so much for being with us this week. It's been fun. We'll be back next week to talk about language arts.
Okay.
And so that's going to be fun. Thank you guys so much for listening. You are such a blessing to us. If there's any way we can pray for you or serve you and just help you with your homeschooling journey, let us know. You can always contact us by sending an email at podcast@schoolhouserocked.com. We would love to hear from you. And again, if you haven't seen Andrew's movie, Schoolhouse Rocked, The Homeschool Revolution, you can stream it for free through our website, schoolhouserocked.com. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you back here next week. Bye.
You're listening to the Biblical Family Network.
Hey, I'm Miki.
And I'm Will.
And we're the co-hosts of the Culture Proof Podcast. We want to invite you to join us every week as we discuss what's happening in the world and then filter those happenings through a decidedly biblical lens.
There are many questions, especially when we see what's happening in our culture today, but the answers are found within the Word of God. So that's where we want to look.
Amen. When we resist those cultural trends that rival the truth,
we remain culture proof.
It is much easier for a homeschool mom to teach a child to read than for any teacher, no matter how much training they have, to teach a whole room full of little kids to read at the same time. So, don't in any way imagine that you are somehow not qualified to do this. One of the worst things that we do in this country is we try to force young children to read, many of whom are not developmentally ready for that. Consequently, they start to hate it, right? And then they can continue hating it even after the point where they could learn it more easily, but they've been hating it for a year or two. So now they just never want to.